Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Afghanistan Bigfoot encounter. I just wanted to recount a little story. I've been with the United States military for about 15 years now, and I was out in Afghanistan in Baghlan province, and we were doing nighttime guard duty, and it was about 2 in the morning, and I was 249, machine gun. I was looking through the knob and I saw what I, at first, thought was a large tall man. But it had an almost like a fur coat like my golden retriever has. And as I watched it, I clicked from safe to semi, but it wasn't threatening. It turned and looked at me and I looked at it. And I really, until this point when I saw it, I always thought Bigfoot was like folklore. It was like a myth like Loch Ness Monster. Now I'm truly a believer that it does exist, and since coming back. Now this was in 2013. Since coming back, I've been researching and so on. Bushwhacked. Bigfoot startles hunter walking to blind. My encounter happened on the second Saturday of November of 2010 in Central Texas. Let's just say I don't hunt anymore. I worked late Friday, which put me up later Saturday than planned. So I decided on a late day hunt. I figured I'd go out around 3 p.m. and sit in the pop-up ground blind till dark. I got there just before 3 p.m. and got ready and headed out. By that time it was about 10 minutes after. As soon as I hit the woods I smelled a horrible odor. I was still a good 75 yards from the blind. The smell was of death and more. I've never smelled anything like it before. It was as if a dead animal had been in the sun for a while. But it also was a mixture of other smells. I stopped and looked around for the dead animal but saw nothing. So I continued on my way. There was a game trail that breaks off onto another trail. It would bring you to the back of the blind. I never took that way. I always went through the woods to a fence line and then turned left and followed the fence to the blind. I finally got to the fence line, and the smell was a bit stronger, so I stopped to look around for the dead animal again. But again, there was nothing. So I turned left and started towards the blind. I was probably 50 yards from the blind and could see someone at the blind. I flipped my rifle safety off and kept going. As I got a bit closer I thought to myself, well, it's not Dad, it's another hunter. As I got little closer I could tell his head was in the pop-up blind window. I thought it was strange that a hunter would be in a ghillie suit. As I got near, the hunter looked like someone dressed in a Bigfoot suit. Thinking that's a good way to get shot. At around 30 to 40 yards from the blind, that horrible odor hit me square in the face. At that same time, its head popped out of the blind window, and we looked eye to eye at each other for what seemed forever, though I'm sure it was just a matter of seconds. There were no trees or brush between us. A clear view. I literally froze. I didn't move as it stomped the ground and grunted at me. All I could do was stand frozen in place in fear. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. It then stepped out of the blind and walked away from me, down the fence line, then pushed the fence down on top as it stepped over. It looked back at me while it walked across the field. I watched as it reached another fence, which it stepped over. It reached the edge of the far woods and disappeared from sight. I got a clear look of it from head to toe. Face, muscles moving under the fur. The whole 9 yards. It looked quite human in the face. Neanderthal-like. The reddish color resembled that of an orangutan with Caucasian skin tone. It had to have been 8 to 10 foot tall, and was jacked with muscle. I mean like a bodybuilder's tone. There was no mistaking it for male. I'm 5 foot 8 or 9. It's safe to say that my hunting days are over. SS.
Oklahoma Bigfoot encounter results in memory loss. Was out rabbit hunting between the hours of 21:30 CDT to about 23:15 CDT on a farm outside of Maud, Oklahoma in April 2011. It was a clear and cold night with a quarter moon out. Upon returning to my home, about 23:15 CDT, I walked up on my patio, which is about 5 feet off the ground. As soon as I reached the deck, I noticed a large human-like figure that was bigger than any man I ever saw. I used the Surefire white light on my shotgun to see better. Due to light fog, I could only see about 25 feet with the light. The creature was out in the open enough to see an outline of the figure. I had seen all my animals act unusual prior, a feeling of being watched at hours of darkness on more than once. The figure was watching me and made eye contact. It was very large and close to 7 to 8 feet tall, was very stocky build, would guess well over 400 pounds. The figure seemed annoyed that I pointed my shotgun at it. It seemed to have no fear of me or my animals. My dog, military trained, cowered down and would not respond to commands. I did contact a Bigfoot team that showed up within 72 hours of this. No evidence was found. No footprints, hair, nothing. I did experience some lapse in memory thereafter. I am a retired Special Forces sniper with 10 years experience and 3 tours in Iraq, including the Iraq invasion, with the 3rd Infantry Division on the front lines. I have no knowledge after all I seen and done to describe this figure. I do need to be kept out of any public report because of my background and security clearance with the military. I just want answers and will provide full cooperation in person. The biggest thing that bothers me is the lack of fear from the figure and my fear back. I fear very little in life. Just want to get to the bottom of this. JN.
Bigfoot scares hikers in North Michigan Lower Peninsula. I haven't really talked about this much, because when I do I get made fun of. People laugh and then they think of me differently. I work in tech now, so I want my reputation to be more on the side of logic, decisiveness, and efficiency. I don't want to be the Bigfoot guy or have whispers happen, so I just don't talk about it. But whenever I see my cousin and I say, "Do you remember?" She knows what I'm talking about and says, "Yes." I grew up in a northern part of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan in a fishing village. Our family was from a state south of Michigan, so it was a good day-long drive to them and vice versa. The house that we lived in at the time was on the edge of a state forest, and I loved to just hike around. I felt like I knew the area pretty well. I'm familiar with being in the woods. I've dealt with wild animals before. I've been to parts of northern Canada where there are no roads, so you have to fly in. I've chased wild bears and gotten way too close to moose than I ever should have. I'm no Bear Grylls, but I'm also no city slicker. The day this happened was the same day that my older sister was graduating from high school. My cousin and I were about the same age. All the other kids in the extended family were at least 4 years older or younger than us, so we were default friends during family gatherings. We decided to go on a hike. I wanted to show her what real woods looked like since she was from a much more urban area. So we went off. I forget what time we left, but we had to be back by like 5 p.m. or so to make it to the graduation. We were hiking around, up and down hills, noticing the half-buried barbed wire fences from when it used to be grazing country. I'm telling her about that, and that's why not all of the trees are huge. They were all planted a few decades earlier, so they aren't fully mature yet. And then, I forgot where I was. I wasn't sure how to get back. So we turn and head where I think I should be going to get back, but that doesn't take us there. It's been a while. We need to get back to make the graduation. I know that we are in state forest territory, so if we walk in the wrong direction we won't see any civilization for dozens of miles. Can't hear any cars, since we are so far away from roads otherwise that would help. After what seemed like forever we stumble into a clearing. Like, mowed grass. It's on a hill that looks like it would be good for sledding in the winter. The hill has a drop-off on either side that has plenty of trees. So there would be trees rooted in the drop-off area that would have branches at ankle level on the hill depending on how high up the hill you were. And that's when it happened. We heard this sound like when you are close to a horse that's breathing heavily, and it stopped us in our tracks. It seemed unnatural. It was not the kind of sound that you would expect to hear in that moment. It was creepy. We were not close to any animals that we knew of. We were in a clearing. And then we saw it. About a quarter of the way up the hill one of the tree branches from the drop-off lifted up, and I saw it. It saw us. It was just the head, but it was plain as day. Large, hairy and snorting. And just like that it went away. We were terrified so we ran. The mowed hill was a part of a farm, and we found the driveway which lead to a road which lead to another road that I knew, and we got back to my home in time for the graduation. Nobody believed us. To this day, nobody believes me. I know that old farmers and hairy old hippies are just a part of the tapestry of culture in that area. I know them. I've spent time sitting around their fires while drinking and telling stories to each other. This was not them. This was not a person. This was not a bear or any other animal that I know. This was something that I've never seen before and I hope to someday see again. And that is why I believe in Bigfoot. RM.
Bigfoot family seen near U.S. Army Fort Knox, Kentucky. I came across your website and want to share what I experienced about 15 years ago. I lived in a rural area southwest of Louisville, Kentucky. I was a firefighter for a small volunteer department. We got called by the fire department on Fort Knox Army Base to inform us that there was a fire heading north out of base towards our district. I was in a 4x4 field unit going along a dirt road on the inside of the border. When we came around a bend it was smoky, but you could easily see something standing in the middle of the road looking towards us. We were 150 to 200 feet away when it let out a deep, and I mean deep bellow grunt. Then I saw a medium-sized creature step out of tree line with two smaller ones. The family group of Bigfoot quickly rushed north over the fence and out of sight. The first one was 7 to 8 foot tall, matted brown-black hair. Weight unknown. The medium size was definitely a female due to the way it acted towards the little ones. It was easily 6.5 foot with a slender build. The small ones were 5 to 6 foot tall and skinny. The area north of where we saw them has multiple areas for them to hide, with hills and forest and valleys all over the area. The firefighter I was with agreed to not mention it to the department. I have in the years since heard of other encounters within a 10 to 15 mile radius of the area. JBB.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.